Hello, welcome to Backdoor Bills Talk. My name is J Don't Fade. This week we're going to be talking about and previewing the Dolphins and Bills game. A couple of, I guess I could say, like last-minute concerns, or really more than that, like kind of all-season concerns that are going to kind of affect a lot of the games coming up. Now, we will be getting Trey White back in a couple of weeks. We all hope, of course. We still have Jordan Poyer, who, in my opinion, is probably our best safety, possibly the best safety in the league. Christian Benford's been a pretty contributable player. I think Elam's played pretty well for a rookie corner. Corner isn't really a position that you come out of the draft super hot. And there are some, of course, there's Jalen Ramsey and Trey White, of course. Marshawn Lattimore. To speak more recently, of course, there's been, Dan Sanders and some of the more legendary players at the position. But it's not something that's easy to come out and do. Obviously, it's, in my opinion, possibly next to quarterback, of course, the toughest position on the field. You are having to guess, and this is regardless if you're coming out of school or not, you could be a seasoned vet. You're having to guess what another player is going to do, where they're going to run. And you don't really get any shine unless you're getting interceptions, of course. You don't really get any shine if you're hearing your name, because it means that someone's noticing you, probably because you're on the other end of a bad play on yourself or on your team, and someone's catching a ball over you, which is obviously not what you're looking to have happen. However, I am speaking on the Micah Hyde injury, which is unfortunate. I was at the game last week. I'm at every home game, of course, but I was at the game last week. Great atmosphere, great vibe. However, there were a couple of injuries, and I remember thinking after the game that the game had went on for quite a while. It was usually you get like a 2.5, maybe 3 hour game. I want to say it was like just a touch over 3 hours, but when I thought about it, you have all the injuries. You have the injury to Dane Jackson. You have the injury to Micah Hyde, of course, unfortunately, on any part for injury. You had some injuries on there. I think you might have had an injury on the very first play, to be honest. I'm not sure I believe that was on the Titans on the kickoff. It was their second string running back, at least, because they dressed three. Derrick Henry and the other two, of course. One was a rookie and one was not so much of a seasoned vet, but a vet in general. And he was banged up on that play. A lot of injuries. And I had thought to myself, like, all right, maybe Dane Jackson was just kind of banged up and was going to come back, and it looked more serious than it was. And obviously when it comes to something with the neck, you never really fool around. So it made sense that they brought the ambulance on and took him to the hospital and whatnot. And then I heard they was moving all of his extremities, which is good, of course. Yeah, Scott. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in the stream for you here. As much as I can fit. I don't think it's going to fit too much, unfortunately. But just to read it out loud, Scott says injuries are a effing problem, but depth play will validate our run for the Super Bowl. Let's hope so. If they carry well, we good. Yeah, let's hope. All the way to Phoenix. Yeah, so that's the hope. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Obviously, Mike Hyde being out for the season isn't great, but we do have decent depth. Now, at that position, you've got Jaquan Johnson, who was a guy that was drafted in the 5th round, I believe, a couple years back. He hasn't been asked to do much pretty much his entire time here, however, but he has had certain pockets of time where he's been asked to play, or in the week 16, week 7, well, now week 18, but week 17 play where we're not really playing for anything, or we're just trying to rest the starters, and he gets to play. And he's looked good in those games from what I remember. Preseason, of course, he's a special team guy. when he was drafted in the 5th round, actually, it was pretty much talked about that he was probably just going to be like your best or your second best special teams guy, which still seemed kind of high for a 5th round pick. Because you think of the guys we've gotten in the 5th round in the past, just under Brandon Bean, you would think like, oh, well, you want to get a guy that's a good depth piece if possibly could challenge to be a starter at some point in the future. And that's not what I saw in him when we drafted him with Jaquan Johnson, that is. But however, he's going to be put into the pit of the fire now. So we'll have to see what happens. Now, as far as like I know, my first initial thought when I heard the Hyde was out was like Earl Thomas, just naturally because guy was an all-pro caliber player, may still be, had some character concerns, the thing with his wife and the gun, but it's a bunch of crazy stuff going on. I'm intertwined with the Ravens fan base as well. Talked to them about him, what they thought as far as what kind of player we'd be getting if we somehow got him. And obviously, it's all speculation at this point. It's the same thing as Odell Beckham. There's really no truth to it. It's just something that fans are conjuring up that think would be a good idea, myself included on this one. I didn't agree with the Odell one. Still don't see a reason why we would need him now, before, or later at any point. Of course, barring some insane injury, then it would make sense. But for now, there's just not enough targets to go around for him. However, with Earl Thomas, I am on board. I think he's an all-pro player. If he comes in and he's even half of what he was before, that's more than enough. Very good player. Could definitely would look great opposite. I don't think he's as good as Micah Hyde, of course, but would look great. And I don't know what kind. That's another thing. What kind of football shape is he in? Is he in football shape? Is he in shape in general? Has he been practicing football since he's been out of the league? I think it's been 2 or 3 years since he's played. Maybe just 2. 1.5. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's been about 2. I want to say the last time he played was a 2020 season. I don't think he played it all last year, and he obviously hasn't played this year. So we'll say 2 and change. But it's possible that he's able to play. I think we'll hear about it soon, though. They have elevated a couple of guys from the practice squad. I'm just working on here. Internet's been a bit of an issue the last couple of days here in my area, local to Buffalo, Williamsville, of course. Wanted to go ahead and get everything pulled up here. Let's see, who did they elevate? I want to see it was it Hamlin? I'll get that for you later either way. But taking a peek here, I did think that, and it's kind of weird, just to kind of touch on the Hyde issue. I didn't think that the Hyde injury was going to be that severe either. Like, it didn't look like the hit was all that tough. And obviously, I'm just watching from the peanut gallery, but I mean, not saying that it wasn't tough, but just it doesn't look as bad on film as some of the other ones do. So I was assuming that he'd probably be able to make it back. If not this week, then next week. I didn't see him going out for the rest of the year. Not to mention, like, neck injuries are tough. Like, it's ironic and sad, but we have experience with a safety that we all really liked in the fan base and had a couple of neck concerns or head related, something above the shoulder related issues, and it ended his career. And that is a fan favorite, Aaron Williams, who I've met. He's a cool guy, really nice guy. He used to hang out in the parking lots an awful lot. But yeah, his career was derailed, and that was probably partially due to Jarvis Landry being, who he is and whatnot. But I don't like Jarvis Landry. I never did. Didn't in the moment when it was happening, and definitely don't now. However, Micah Hyde, yeah, it sucks, but I mean, this is what happens. Let's just be grateful at this point that it's not, someone like, knock on wood for all these guys, but Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs or Von Miller or any of these guys. I mean, they're all very key pieces to what we're doing, what we've actively been doing for the last 2 weeks. But I mean, you work with what you have and you get through. There's been teams like look at the Rams had issues last year. Every Super Bowl team has had a key injury or an injury of some extent. If you go back, you'll find 1 or 2, and maybe some are bigger than others. But I think in the grand scheme of things, you look at players that have been lost on Super Bowl runs or for teams in general, quarterbacks. This is something that we can overcome. Micah Hyde will be there. I'm sure he'll be there on the sideline, depending on how his recovery goes and what his chances are to do, and what he's going to be doing on the sideline as far as game planning or anything like that. I don't know. Can't speak to that, of course, but I think we can overcome it. And if Jaquan Johnson doesn't look great this week, I expect there to be some signings, and maybe then you start hearing about the Earl Thomas type of rumors, and we'll see who else is out there too. Maybe there's a good defensive back they'd like to be able to replace, and we'll see at that point. Jessica says, I don't know why there we go. Okay. They are replaceable to this degree so far. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Obviously, I think it's very underrated by everybody, but in general, outside of the fan base, about how underrated Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are individually and most certainly as a unit. I mean, I think they're both regarded as probably top, I mean, I would say top 20, but I've seen lists with top 10 that have neither names on it. So top 20 safeties, in my opinion, it's pretty close. I have Jordan Poyer as the number one safety in the game, and I have Micah Hyde hanging around 4 or 5 as far as safeties in the game. So I have them both as top 5s, and they're the top safety tandem. It's not even close, in my opinion. But let's hope getting Trey White bolsters some of that back, bring some of that and really what I think is more important than the play even is the veteran leadership that Hyde brings to be able to kind of be the field general in a sense. Obviously Tremaine Edmonds would be that guy, but to be a field general in the sense that he'd be watching over and helping to move the position players around, not position players, but the cornerbacks around, the secondary, and the nickelbacks around and whatnot, and kind of align them up and what he's seeing, essentially. He's the guy calling the plays out there, essentially, for the secondary. So that being said, we'll move on to our next topic. We're going to talk about a couple different things today. So we talked about Micah Hyde. We're going to talk about, obviously, the Bills game in general, what we think about the Dolphins coming in. We'll go over the Dolphins' last 2 games. We'll go over the Bills' last 2 games real quick, and then we'll give a prediction of the score. I'll give you a couple bets that I like this week, and we'll wrap it up here because I'm pretty excited to get into the game tomorrow. We got less than, I was going to say less than 12 hours. We're not there yet, but we've got, 12, 4, 16, about 16 hours left till kickoff. Closer to 15 hours left until kickoff. It's a big game. A lot of big implications. The Bills win this game. Here's the thing, though. It's kind of like I don't want to say a double-edged sword, but it's like we're expected to win the game, but if we do, it's not, we don't get as big of a payout, even if it's our negative or a positive or a response in general as if we lost. So if we lost, it'd be like, oh my God, the Bills aren't great. The Dolphins are the team to beat. They are this and that, and that would be the talk. If we win, they're going to be like, oh, well, they were supposed to beat the Dolphins. This is just reassuring who they were because we're already Super Bowl favorites at this point. We can't really go any higher. So, we can't really get any more national respect than we've already gotten from the media. So, that being said, let's jump into the Dolphins and what they look like, how they line up on paper, and what they've done in the last 2 games. Impressive one last game, of course, and we'll get into that in a second. We'll start with their first game. So, the Miami Dolphins, the Fish, led by Tua Tagovailoa, of course. They've got 2 speed demon burners on the boundaries, and that is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, both fantastic players, of course. Last 2 games, for some reason, I don't know if it's just the way that my Google works or how it's looked for me to this point, but it always pulls with the Bills matchups. Every time I look up any team, it's whatever the local team has done. I don't know why it does that, but either way, last 2 games, if it ever wants to pull up. So Patriots, I watched that game, the whole game actually, because we had played Thursday night. This is for September 11th, the home opener, or not the home opener, but the season opener, regular season opener for everybody. We had played on Thursday, so I was looking for games to watch. I definitely had that game highlighted as a game I wanted to watch. I wanted to see how Mac Jones played and how he reacted, and I want to see how Tua Tagovailoa played. So that game was 120-7. From what I remember, it seemed like it was a close game, but the Dolphins kind of pulled away at the end, and it was a decent game. But either way, Tua, there we go, down with the internet. Tua in that game was fairly pedestrian but decent. Really, his stats come in the second game, which we'll open up to in a second here, but where his real numbers came up, and he's been getting the respect now and blah, 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 whatever. I think he's an average quarterback at best, but I guess we'll see tomorrow when he plays a really elite top defense and the top line is going to get pressure to him. But yeah, that game 20-7 against the Patriots. Patriots 1-1 at this point. Dolphins, of course, coming in 2-0. That's part of the hype. If they were 1-1, I think it'd be a little bit different. They probably should be 1-1. After the game that happened last week. However, they are not. So taking a peek at the game from last week, that's what I really want to talk about. So this game started out, Ravens scored a touchdown in the first quarter. The Ravens then proceeded to score 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. Those were not unanswered points. There was a touchdown scored by the Dolphins in the second quarter. We go into half, it's 28-7, all right? 27, okay, this is the old Dolphins. Nothing's really changed. Ravens beating up on them. Ravens are a good team, but the Ravens are beating up on them. Going to the next quarter, okay? We get to the point where it's 35 to, I believe it was 35. No, I'm sorry. It was 28-14 at one point. Then it was 35. Yes, then it became 35-14. Or I'm sorry, 28. Yes, 28-14, then 35-14. Okay. I think we then get to a point where the Dolphins score a touchdown. Maybe they score 2, and it goes 35-28. The Ravens score, I believe, yes, and then they go to 38-28. No, that's not right. 38. There's so many scores. It was such a ludicrous game. It's hard to track. Either way, Dolphins win the game somehow. The Ravens were up by multiple scores. It didn't look like it was conceivable that they could come back. And every time I looked at the score, They were getting closer and closer and closer. And eventually they win at the end of the game. Lamar gets the ball. They get it to close to midfield. Of course, the field goal range doesn't matter because the score at that point was 42-38. Take a shot at the end zone. I think that it looked like to me like there might have been like they were gonna call, or not they were gonna call, but they should have called pass interference somewhere or a holding. But I know they're ticky tacky with that stuff, and it's ticky tacky probably to make that call, and ticky tacky in general to make the call at the end of the game. Get an end time down. Lamar probably would have got the ball at like the 20, and it would have been a good shot. I don't know. We would have won the game, but really the Ravens deserved to lose that game. The way they played their defense in the second half, gave up 35 points. Ravens were outscored in the second half, 35-10. It's pretty embarrassing. Pretty rough game for the Ravens, of course. For the Dolphins, it was a signature win. I don't know if you can call it. It's more like a fluke win. It's not like one of those like a signature win to me is like you play against a team that's like really good, that's expected to be a close game, and you like blow them out or win like handedly. And they didn't do that. I mean, they struggled really, really hard for the first three quarters. Like maybe not so much the third quarter, but the first two quarters they were getting blown out. Like the game was over. People probably started. If it was in Miami, they'd been leaving the stands. However, they weren't. So yeah. That's the Dolphins win. That's kind of what's got the hype built up to this point. I want to take a look at some of the stats, if I can, for the Dolphins, just to see, so we can see what we're matching up against here. I know Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs are pretty even in stats, other than Diggs having a couple more touchdowns than him. And of course, when you go to Dolphins stats, they can't just give you the stats for the current year. They have to give you the stats for all time, which is not what you're looking for. So I guess we'll avoid that. However, yes. All right, here we go. Never mind, we found it. This will be good because this will actually give us, we can take a look at where they line up. It's only been 2 weeks, but it's as much of a sample size as we have at this point. So right now their leading rusher is, no, I don't want that. Their leading rusher is they clearly don't run the ball very much, and I don't know if it's a proponent of them being down by so much last week, and besides that only having one game. But the leading rusher is Raheem Mostert, who a lot of people regard now at this point as the fastest player in the league. They probably have the two fastest players in the league in their team. They have Raheem Mostert at running back, halfback, tailback, whatever you want to call him, and they have Tyreek Hill, of course, at wideout, who was originally the fastest player in the game. Now he even says Raheem Mostert might be. Raheem Mostert, 16 attempts for he started one game. I think him and Chase kind of split it though. Him and Chase Edmonds kind of split carries a lot. It's what it looks like. It's pretty even balance for carries. However, Mostert's done more with the carries he's gotten. So Mostert, 16 attempts for 6-7 yards, 4.2 yards per average, 11 yards the longest run he had, no touchdowns. 33 yards a game, of course, that comes out to. Chase Edmonds, 17 carries, so only one more carry, but 58 yards. So he's got 9 less yards with one more carry, or one more carry with 9 less yards. Not good. 3.4 yards per rush. Of course, that still gives you a first down every time, but we know that that's just an average. It's not what he means he's going to get every time. However, he has the longest run. So this actually kind of makes his stats even worse. He had the longer run, which was 28 yards. So if you take the 28 off the 58, that's 30. You got 17 attempts. Oh, I'm sorry, take the attempt off too. 16 for 30. He's averaging closer to 2 yards a carry, even slightly less, honestly, if you take that run out. Which means he's not really getting anything at all. If you take out Raheem Mostert's, his longest was 11. So instead of 16 carries, he has 15. So he has 15 carries for 56 yards, which is pretty impressive still. It's pretty good. That will put him right around 4-ish, something in the ballpark. 4, 15, 30, something. 3, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, 3.5, 3.7, something. It's better than Chase Edmonds at the end of the day, regardless of the math. Now, receiving, it's a bit of a different story. They've got some real burners, as I mentioned. And really, for fantasy owners, it's probably a bit concerning as well. But let's see here. We're going to load up real quick. Come on. How do you know? Yeah, so Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Okay, so 25 targets for Tyreek Hill, 24 targets for Jalen Waddle. 284 yards through the air for Tyreek Hill on 25 targets, but 19 receptions. So 19 receptions for 284 yards. He's averaging 15 yards a catch. Jalen Waddle, 24 targets, so about the same amount of targets, one less target, 15 catches, however, 240 yards through the air. They both have, Jalen Waddle has 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill has 2 touchdowns. So Jalen Waddle's actually got the closer stats. That's actually insane how much they're passing. And how much they might have like 2 of the top 5 fantasy wide receivers on their team, which is not looking good for us going into tomorrow. I think tomorrow is going to be a shootout, but I'll get into that. I don't want to blow up my pick and what I've got going for you here. So And I'll actually share my parlay of the week. I'm doing a parlay myself this week. If you guys look on FanDuel, they do a ton of offers and giveaways for like free money basically, and I always take part in it now because it's free money and you can win a lot of the time. So I'll give you my pick. If you want to place that, you can place that too. So they're both averaging. Well, Tyreek Hill's averaging 15 yards per catch. Jalen Waddle averaging 16 yards per catch. 3 touchdowns for Mr. Waddle, 2 touchdowns for Mr. Hill. It's 142 yards a game for Tyreek Hill and 120 yards a game for Jalen Waddle. That's insane, of course. And they both have a deep ball on their resume this year as well in the short 2 games. 60-yarder for Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle 59-yarder. So they're trying to like one up each other here. You can see everything's like really, really close. However, coming out of the backfield, not a big threat coming out of the backfield. They've really got not much going on there. They've got Chase Edmonds. He's got 7 targets, 5 catches for 48 yards through 2 games. It's not anything crazy. He's averaging 9.6, so it's probably screens they're running a lot of, or just something where they're trying to catch you off guard. They're getting a lot of yards. They do have a new scheme, of course, with Mike McDaniel. A lot of people like him. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's only been 2 games. But then Raheem Mostert, again, the faster guy, he has 4 targets, 4 catches, 44 yards, 11 yards per catch. It's pretty good. Mike Gesicki, he's got 5 targets. He's caught all 5 targets, 5 receptions, 100 yards, 20 yards a catch. Of course, that comes out too. He's got a touchdown as well. So he's fairly involved as well. The rest of the guys all very small, very minimal. You got Trent Sherfield. He's got a catch. Really, outside of Waddle and Hill, there's really not any other receiving threats that are there. I mean, they've got Cedric Wilson. He's got 3 targets, 2 catches for a whopping 20 yards. So there's not much going on there. Take a peek on the other side of the ball for them. As we know, the obvious threat that we can assume is that they're going to be a passing offense, and they're going to try and pass us and tomorrow more than anything because of the guys we have hurt now and who are already missing, being Trey White. So take a look at their defense. I want to take a look at sack numbers more than anything. So they've got 2 team sacks, and they've given up 4 sacks. So they've given up 4 sacks, and it comes up 2 sacks a game. They did play they played the Patriots, and the Ravens don't have that dominant front anymore. Their front's actually pretty bad. The Patriots don't have a really dominant front. Like, they're probably average. So I think that we could honestly match the 4 that both opponents have gotten together tomorrow, depending on if we can tackle and wrap up. And it really comes down to wrapping up. I don't have to worry for that when it comes down to Von Miller. Greg Russo's having a good year. We'll see what's going on, I guess. We got guys that are still banged up, too, with Phillips and Oliver and now Hyde and Trey White. And it's just a lot of injuries that we're dealing with right now. Let's hope we can get through it, though. So they're guys that had their 2 sacks. Emmanuel Agaba's got a sack for them, and Brandon Jones, the safety's got a sack for him. Obviously, he came in on a blitz and hit a sack there. Interceptions. That's the next thing we'll take a peek at here. I don't know if they want to show that, though. Interceptions. Fumble recovery. That's so weird that the one stat they wouldn't give you. Oh, there you go. Okay, so they've got 1 interception. Tua has 2 interceptions on the year. Their 1 interception came from Javon Holland. I remember it now. It came from Javon Holland, 31-yard return, and I believe it was on Mac Jones because I don't think they picked off Lamar. Take a look at their punt return team. Nothing crazy there. 2 punts returned by Javon Holland, 8 return yards. 1 punt returned. So they've been punted to once. They've punted 3 times, however. So I think they're Mike McDaniel being younger. I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to like just 4th and 2 on ours. Anything that's shorter than 4th and 5 on our side of the field tomorrow. It may even be longer than 4th. Anything that's 4th and 10 or lower, or let's say 4th and 8. That's the number of people usually got. 4th and 8, 4th and 7. We'll say 4th and 7. Anything lower than 4th and 7 and on our side of the field tomorrow, Mike McDaniel's now going to know they're going to need points, and he's going to want to go for it and take the chance because they know they need points. Let's take a look at their field goal kicker because that's important, right? And their punter too. We'll take a quick look at that before we jump onto the Bills side of things. Jason Sanders. Okay, so 2 field goals attempted, 2 field goals made. That shows you that 2 field goals in 2 games, they want to go for it. So 2 field goals in 2 games. He made both along with 49. They were both between 40 and 49 yards. 8 extra points made. He hasn't missed a kick yet this year. So we'll see. And their punter. Okay, so I think we have 2 punts this year after last game. They have 6 punts. So they also don't punt that often. 6 punts. 265 yards, 58 yards, the longest punt. That's not a very good punt. 44 yards and net of 41. So, and he had, but all 4 punts. Well, that's the thing. So I guess that's kind of like all right, 58 is the long one. I said it myself, mocking myself, but 58 yards is not a very long punt. But he had 4 of those 6 punts in the 20, so he was hitting what he was supposed to be doing. 1 was fair caught, 3 were returned. 1 must have been fair caught inside the 20. Then I'm guessing. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Or no, yeah, okay. So there were some that were returned inside the 20. I see. And the return yards, the average return yards, or the return yards they had so far is 17. So 6 punts, 3 were returned for 17 yards. They're giving up 6.3 continuing, 6.3333333 forever. If you remember math class, 6.3 continuing, and that is not a lot of return yards that are being given up. So obviously their punt coverage is pretty solid, and it's always kind of been for them. Their special teams never been like that bad. So we'll jump onto the Bills side of things. If my computer wants to allow us to pull up the Bills, wait a second here. Let's see. Okay. Shows Case Keenum's stats. That's funny. Okay. I got to watch Case Keenum for almost, no, yeah, it was. It was a full quarter and maybe change. Allen came out in the third, but did we get any snaps? I think we might have 1 or 2 snaps, 3 snaps in the third. I can't remember. Maybe it was more than that. But I got to watch him last game for a whole quarter. That was interesting. Not great, but interesting. They didn't put any more points up. Yeah, let's take a look at Josh Allen, of course, right? So Josh Allen, 69 attempts. That's basically 70 attempts. That's 35 a game. 52 completions. Completion percentage is 75.4. Percentage completion, of course. 614 yards. That's an average of 307 a game. 9 yards, and I believe that's per completion. Might be per attempt. That 9-yard average, regardless. 307 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 1 shouldn't be an interception. Really, it should be 7-1. However, 7-2. He's been sacked 3 times. 9 yards lost on sacks and a 123 quarterback rating, which is good for top 5 in the league, which I'll take. Don't need to talk about Josh Allen. We know who Josh Allen is. Rushing. This is kind of where it gets a little interesting. So rushing. These are the top. The last. We're not going to go with the last. We'll go with the. Let's go with the top 4 to prove a point. So top 4 yards rushing. Here we go. Devin Singletary. His longest run is 16 yards. He's got 14 attempts, which in my opinion should be double that because there should be no one else getting carries besides James Cook, and we're talking about a couple, 3 to 4 carries, but mostly passing game stuff. It should be bell cow stuff for Devin Singletary at this point. Every single year he does it. I can't stand it. 14 attempts, 67 yards, 4.8 yards of carries. Average almost 5 yards a carry. He does this every year, guys, but we continue to try and replace him. And I did people, oh, well, it's more about the passing. We can use him passing. And not to mention, you don't really use Cook to pass anyway. So what was the point they were trying to make? It's been 2 games, I know, but still. Anyways. No touchdowns for Devin Singletary. I'm hoping he changes that tomorrow. Another guy with no touchdowns we'll talk about in a second here, which I'm hoping changes tomorrow, and I'm betting changes tomorrow. Hint, wink, wink, wink on my parlay. However, taking a peek here at what we've got going on, Devin Singletary, like I said, 14 attempts for 67 yards. Josh Allen has 11 attempts for 66 yards and 1 touchdown Josh Allen has. James Cook, 12 attempts for 55 yards. He had a long one, though, so he had 33 yards on the longest run there. So if you take that one out, you've got 11 attempts for, let's do the quick math here, 22. So 11 attempts for 22 yards. That's 2 yards a carry. Not good, of course. We'll take out the longest run from everybody, to be fair, of course. We'll take it out from Singletary, even though I think his stats will still be significantly better than everybody else's. Other than Allen, of course, he's got 6 yards a carry. But it's a little bit different. Zach Moss, 9 attempts for 32 yards for pedestrian, 3.6 yards in average. And here's the more embarrassing part. Take out that carry. For the longest one he has, 17. You take that out, you're sitting at 15 yards on 8 carries. Less than 2 yards a carry, which is about where Zach Moss has been for the last year and change. Not good. No touchdowns. At this point, I don't know why he's on this team. He is. So I guess that's that. There's really not much more to say about him. But if you take out Devin Singletary's, he's got 6-7 yards, right? So take out the 16-yard run he had. He's at 51. No, I'm sorry. Yes, 51 yards on 13 rushes, 51 yards. He's still over 4. It's
it's a no-brainer at this point. I don't know what they're doing. If they're just trying to prove that they went wrong by taking Zach Moss and then doubling down by taking James Cook, I don't know. I get that James Cook is used something different, but I don't think it's useful. I think it's a bad pick. We wasted a pick. I don't see why we need to do that. Could he maybe use another cornerback? I don't know. Now, let's get into receiving. This is the fun part. So receiving, 2 games, 2 starts, of course, for Stephon Diggs. He's got 24 targets, which is 12 per game for 20 catches. That's 10 per game. Catching 83% of his targets for 270 yards, 13 yards a catch, 53-yard long bomb, which was the last game for a touchdown, I believe. Maybe it was a 49-yarder. Maybe the long one came in the Rams game. I can't remember. He's had a couple deep balls now, which is cool. 2 of 25 or more, a lot of shorter stuff that he turns into bigger stuff. 4 touchdowns, though. It's 2 touchdowns per game, but we know he had 1 in the first game. We had 3 last game. 135 yards a game. Really can't complain about that. That's very good. Here's a stat I like, though. If you look at his first down percentage, that's the percentage, if you know what that is, that's the percentage of receptions that resulted in a first down. 55%. So half his catches are coming in crucial situations. Now, I would give him to Gabe Davis. I'll give you the stats real quick, even though he didn't play last game. We'll have to see that he comes back fresh tomorrow. I know he's on the betting odds, so they're expecting him to play. We'll see. I don't know that's going to happen, though, from what I've heard. So receptions, 4 yards. Receptions, 4, targets, 5. 80% of catches, that 80% of course, 5, 4, 1, 80%. 88 yards. This is just from the one game. He had 4 for 88 and a touch, which is good stats. If he can do that tomorrow, I think we win the game. Of course, I think they'll probably call him a little bit more than that if he's fully healthy and ready to go. Dawson Knox. This is the big one I wanted to talk about. Dawson Knox. So 7 targets, 5 catches, 46 yards. That's 9.2 yards a catch. 23 yards a game, no touchdowns. I expect him to be way more heavily involved tomorrow. He has really not been involved much in the game plan at all to this point, and it's been pretty surprising, I'd say, honestly. I expected a lot more out of him. I didn't think that that was going to happen as far as just not seeing him be used. I don't know. I just figured he'd be used more often. I don't know. Let's jump on the defensive side of the ball, but I think he will be used. I think this tomorrow he gets his first touchdown. I hope and think both. So let's take a look here. Defensive side of the ball. I want to look at sacks. Okay, so we've got 1. So let's go with the total first. 3, 4, 8. Wow, that's impressive. 9 sacks, averaging 4.5 a game for that defense so far, which is killing it. Now, here's the even thing I like a little bit more. This is what I like the most, actually. The number of sacks is great, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got 6 different guys with sacks, and those 6 guys go as follows. Tremaine Edmonds has a sack. Greg Rousseau has 2 sacks. All right, let's go from lowest to highest. Tremaine Edmonds has a sack. Boogie Basham has a sack. AJ Epinesa and Jordan Phillips both have a sack and a half. Phillips not there tomorrow. Von Miller has 2 sacks, and Greg Rousseau has 2 sacks. That is so nice to see, though, because you've got it coming off both ends. Now, let's look at something else. I want to see if they have the stat in here, which I bet they don't, even though it's a very underrated stat, and that is tackle for loss. Let's look at the tackle leader, too. Why not, right? Honestly, kind of surprised it's Taron Johnson. I thought it would be Tremaine Edmonds. It seems like it would almost always be, but Tremaine Edmonds is the one that has that. Let's look at interceptions. 1, 2, 4, 5. 5 picks. We got 5 picks, and we've got 2 fumble recoveries. That's 7 turnovers forced. Average of 3.5 a game. We'll call it 4 and 3. If we're getting 3 turnovers tomorrow, we're winning the ball game. It's happening. If we get 3 turnovers tomorrow, it's going to be a blowout. If we can I think we can win without getting a turnover. But if we can get 3 turnovers, that'd be good. But 2 at this point hasn't been a turnover machine yet. Like I said. So we will see what happens. Yet. Passes defended. This is another nice stat to look at, too. Total passes defended for the team is 13. You've got Jordan Poyer with 3. He's doing work. Dane Jackson with 2. And you got a slew of guys with 1. So you've got Taron Johnson with 1, Tremaine Edmonds with 1, Matt Milano with 1, Kyrie Elam with 1, Christian Benford with 1, Jordan Poyer with 3, as I mentioned. Von Miller has 1. That's good to see. Boogie Basham's got 1. I like to see Boogie Basham and Greg Rousseau are getting more involved and starting to really contribute. AJ Epinesa is still a little hairy. We'll see what happens with him. I don't think he's going to be what they thought he would be, but I think he can still be a decent depth piece here and a rotational replacement piece. So that'll be good. Shaq Lawson, too. I could have swore Shaq Lawson had a sack. He must have had a tackle for loss. I like that he's back, though, too. Yeah. So that's how the Bills and the Dolphins line up. I'm going to give you a score prediction for tomorrow. I'm going to give you my score prediction, then I'm going to give you my parlay, and I'm going to give you my 3 picks for tomorrow, and money line picks. And of course, some of them will be more enticing than others. That being said, you take them, you take them. You don't, you don't. But I do have a pretty good record, knock on wood, of winning some bets in the last couple of years since I started pretty much getting pretty intrigued or involved with the bets. Just pulling them up now for you. My score prediction for tomorrow is 35-17 Buffalo Bills. We're going to go into half. It's going to be something like 21-10. No, I would go in half. We're thinking like 17-10. Dolphins are still in striking distance. People are talking them up, and then game plan changes. Take it right off from there. Bills win 35-17, blowout game. Simple enough said. Josh Allen has 3 passing touchdowns. There's going to be a fumble in there from somebody, not Josh Allen, but there'll be a fumble in there somewhere. There's going to be a turnover somewhere, but defense is going to lead the story. The defensive line, more importantly, is going to lead the story. Tua will get his. Tua is going to have right around 300 yards. Tyreek Hill is going to have about 100 and change. I think Waddle finishes right around 100 and change. Probably a touchdown apiece for each of them, and then a field goal, of course, to get to that number of 17 I had. But Stephon Diggs stays involved, 2 touchdowns. Dawson Knox has a big day, though. 9 catches, 100 yards or so, 9 catches, 80-ish yards or so, and a touchdown. His coming out party for the year, of course, showing that he's still there and still a huge piece of this team. That's what I got for the game. My parlay for the game, this is an interesting one, and I'll give you the odds on this. So it's the same game parlay. Like I said, I use FanDuel. It comes out to plus 510 odds. So if you put down $1, you get back $5.10 in profit plus your original stake. So you put down $1, you get back a total of $6.10. However, of course, I'm not putting $1 on these. If you want to, though, I put $5 on it, win back $25 and get 30 total back with your buy-in back. However, I put $25 on this. So what I did, and this is in just some betting terminology, I bought points back so much, to be specific. So the total was 53.5. So both teams have to combine for over 53.5. If you're not familiar with the betting world, I teased that down, and teasing is the same as buying. I bought points back. I took over 42.5, which the odds are not as great, of course. However, I'm parlaying it. Part of a bigger parlay, a bigger answer, bigger solution, bigger equation, whatever you want to call it. Equation's probably better describing it. Over 42.5 points. Josh Allen to throw for over 250 yards. Buffalo Bills minus 2.5 points. So if you're not familiar with the betting world, Bills score minus 2.5 points still has to beat the Dolphins. They win that bet. And Dawson Knox anytime touchdown score. That is the catalyst of it. It's plus 510. I put down $25. That pays out $152 in profit. I'm sorry, $152 in profit. Yes, then you get your $25 on top of that. So it'll be what? Technically it's $152.56. So that would be $177.56 you get back. That's good money. I would take that. I did take that, of course. So there you go. Now my picks for the day. I'm going to pick one in every single window. And obviously because I'm doing that doesn't mean that I have full faith in all the picks, but they are ones I'm picking in every single window. So again, of course, my first pick is going to be the Buffalo Bills. I'm taking them. It's minus 4.5 points. If you want to tease it down though, I'll give you those odds right now. If you want to tease it down to minus 2.5, you feel better with the Bills win by a field goal, or if you think they're going to be blown out. So here you go. So minus 2.5 is minus 200. At that point, I'd probably just go with the minus 4.5. I mean, you're not going to take the minus 3.5 at minus 138. You'll take the minus 4.5 at 122, though. If you think the Bills are going to win by a touchdown, but you don't want to risk it with the extra point, you take Bills minus 5.5. That's minus 111. Or if you want to think they're going to win by a touchdown, they're going to get the extra point because Tyler Bass is amazing as he is. Minus 6.5 is plus 108. Good money either way. And if you think the Bills are going to blow them out, you want to go crazy, like minus 19.5. That's plus 430 odds. So you put, or you know what? Let's go minus 18.5. They win by 19 points or 20 points, whatever. That's plus 400. $25 gets you back $100 in profit plus your original $25 stake. That's $125 total. Good money. So my 3 picks. I got the Buffalo Bills minus 2.5. That's at minus 200 odds. Put down $100, get back 50 in profit plus your original 150 total. Second pick in the second window, and that is the 4 o'clock window. We've got, what do we got? 1, 2, 3. I think we had 4, right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. We have 4 games. We've got Jacksonville and LA. We've got, let me differentiate, Jacksonville and the Chargers. We've got Atlanta and Seattle. We've got Green Bay and Tampa Bay, and we got the Rams and Cardinals. I think probably the highlight matchup of that is the Green Bay and Tampa. I know Green Bay came out strong. However, I'm taking Tampa. Tampa's at home. They're minus 1 point on the line. However, don't play with the 1 point. You don't want to risk it and win money if you're putting down big money. Just take them on the money line. It's minus 120. The odds are barely that. You for the Bucks money line straight up to win regardless of the score, minus 120. For the Bucks to win by a point, it's minus 112. Why even risk it? It's minimal money unless you're betting thousands of dollars. So go ahead, take the Bucks. That's my second pick. And my third pick is going to be between the couple primetime games we have. We have a Sunday night game, which is the Broncos and 49ers, and we've got the Cowboys and the Giants. I think the Cowboy and Giants is a lot more interesting. I'm actually going to take a look, and I'm taking the Giants because I like Brian Dable. I'm riding Brian Dable. He is going to be at minus 116 on the money line. Of course, they are the favorites. Dak's not playing. We all know that. It's in the Meadowlands. It's minus 116 on the money line, minus 1 on the point spread, which, like I said, minus 116 for the money line, straight up win regardless of the score, minus 110 for minus 1 point. It's really not worth it. Just take the minus 116. That's what I'm taking, but I'm also going to go ahead and parlay this. I'm taking minus and one more extra parlay. I only do one a week usually, but I'm giving you two. So minus 116, you take the money line for the Giants and you parlay that with the over 39.5 points. That gives you a grand total of plus 228. Let's say you put down a pedestrian amount, $20. $20 pays you out $45 in profit plus the original 20. You get back $65.70. It's a good pick. I like it. Well, that is it for us today, folks. We got a good preview here. I want to thank everybody for being in the chat, being active and vocal. Once we go ahead and get running up a little bit more here, we're thinking about getting possibly a co-host. We'll get a little bit more involved there with you guys in the chat, and let me know. Message me what you want to talk about. I do think some of these chats are pretty funny now reading them though. But yes, go Bills. That's the number one thing I'm seeing in the chat here, and I definitely agree. Real quick, I want to show this here. 4210 WB20X. I can't predict that. It's too high. I mean, could it happen? Yeah. I mean, it's possible. It may be even probable, but it's not probable, but it's possible. Of course, we know it's possible because the Bills romp the Dolphins every damn game we play them, it seems. Other than that one game that Charles Clay dropped that ball from Josh Allen, or else Josh Allen will be undefeated against the Dolphins and in blowout fashion in almost every game. So some games were close up until halftime with the Dolphins, but they always end up separating at the end in our benefit, of course, with winning, blowing them out. Just squishing the fish in general. But until next week, we will cover, of course, a little bit of the I don't want to say the post game. It'll be a little late for a post game, but we'll do a little bit of a recap next week as well as a preview of the upcoming game at that point. I want to say, and I could be wrong, I'll get the schedule, but I want to say it's the Ravens. And don't be slighted by the Ravens. We could pull the Dolphins out and still have a tough time with the Ravens. Ravens are a tough team. They got a really good offense, and it's in Baltimore, and Baltimore is jumping right now, that city, with sports. Ravens are a little down, but the Orioles are running. They're trying to get into the playoffs. So we will see. But until then, squish the fish. Go Bills. Have a good night, folks.